What's up, students? Welcome back to the show. This is Pipe Runner, and today we'll be talking about common tips and tricks regarding GSOC. So the first question that you guys should be asking is why this video is even necessary. I mean, this is not related to any particular phase in GSOC, right? Well, there are a few things that you'll only learn from experience. And because I've already gone through that phase where I've learned things the hard way, I think it's a good idea to let you guys know about these things. At least this will act as a heads up warning for you guys so that you guys are cautious, right? So without beating around the bush, let's start off with the first point. Our first tip would be to try to be in the good books of mentors. I've already stressed upon this topic quite a lot in my communications video. Now the thing is, this particular point not only is valid during your selection phase, but is also valid during your evaluation phase. Now, if you are seen as a student who does not respect the mentors, their opinions, or even their private space, you will be dealt with accordingly during evaluation. And of course, because this is not something that can be marked based on some particular criterias in a very systematic order, human intervention plays a very important role. So if a mentor is not happy with you, he might give you less score, and in general you'll get a very poor score in average. So there are multiple mentors who will be grading you, but of course if you have majority of them thinking that you are not a good pick, you'll be in trouble at the end, trust me. So first off, respect their privacy. So once you're selected, we are talking about after being selected, right? This is when you are coding and working with your mentors. So respect their privacy. So this basically means don't try to get in touch with them other than your stipulated medium for GSOC conversations. That can be Gitter, or that can be IRC. That can be anything that you guys are basically using on a community level, right? Avoid sending them direct messages unless it's absolutely necessary. This is valid for the very platform that you're using. So if you're on Gitter, do not send them direct messages on Gitter, right? There are a couple of reasons for that. First off, of course, you don't want to invade his privacy unless it's absolutely needed. They are like for extreme cases, if you have some sort of emergency, for example, right? But in the other major reason is that if you have some doubt, right, and if you ask it in the public channel and the mentor answers it, that doubt might be something very common, right? And everyone gets to learn from the answer of the mentor. Now the mentor does not have the time to answer each and every student individually, right? So it's always a good idea to use the public chat. Then never skip meetings. Of course, this is pretty obvious, but I mean, it depends from org to org, but if it is an org which has frequent meetings, you'll eventually get the urge to skip one. Try not skipping them, because that basically gives you a red flag in the sense that you are not taking the taking up your work very seriously. So I skipped a few, and that actually got me in trouble. So I would say do not skip them unless you have a very valid reason and you have informed your mentors accordingly. Respect time zone difference. So of course, like if someone is working from say America and someone is working from India, of course there is a huge difference in timing. So you need to be patient. Like when you send in a message on the on the public chat, you need to be patient about receiving a reply from your mentors, because they might be sleeping at that particular moment, right? So these things are, I guess, pretty obvious, but sometimes, when you are in the coding phase, you become a bit restless. You have done something really creative, and you want to show your mentor that you have done something really good. So do not do this. Be patient. Now I think we'll get on to some more serious points. So remember, Google is your ultimate weapon. Why I read this is because many students who have come to me for help, or at least I've seen them on the public chat talking to the mentors, always Google first, right? Google is possibly one of the best things mankind has created so far. Whenever you have a question, just Google it. If you have an error code, Google it. Okay, you'll find it somewhere. I mean, unless it's something totally novel, you'll have that particular question being asked somewhere on the internet, be it on a gist, be it on a GitHub issue, be it on Stack Overflow, right? So it's always a very good idea to Google your questions before asking. So of course, if you don't Google, you'll basically start bugging people, asking the same questions that you can just get the answers to with one Google search, right? When I say do your homework properly, that basically means that before asking a question to someone, do all the research you can, okay, before you ask that particular question to anyone. Okay, then we have exhaust all your options before giving up. So sometimes you have an idea, for example, you have an idea that you want to implement, right? And you possibly haven't done much research regarding its feasibility. So say your mentor is impressed by the idea and you are going to implement it. So you obviously start with doing a Google search of the problem, or the idea at least. But the thing is, sometimes the ideas that you might want to implement are too difficult, right? And say for a developer of your particular experience and maturity might not be able to implement it. Cool. So it's okay to give up, right? It's totally fine to give up, but you'll have to exhaust all your options before doing that. So you need to have a very good reason before you give up, so that you can tell your mentor, hey, I tried this, but it is too difficult and I don't have the particular expertise right now to implement it, and so on and so forth, right? So know when to give up is important, because of course you don't want to waste too much of your time implementing something that might not be even possible for you to implement, right? So totally possible. Third point, do not overwork. I mean, this is possibly one of the most important things that I learned the hard way, and I'll stress this over as much as I can. Do not overwork. What I mean to say from this particular statement is, say you have 3 months, you're a very ambitious developer, right? And on the very first month, you do immense amount of work. Okay, you have work like say 9-10 hours every day. Cool. Now when you are in your second and third month, third phase, basically second and third phase, you don't have anything to do because all your work has been done in the first phase, right? Now what happens is you get a lot of first off, there are expectations now that you'll keep the same amount of work going on in the second and third phase. Also, now you'll be pressurized to work, right? Else your score will drop and you won't pass. So this is very important, and it's kind of a strategy that you need to follow, so that you distribute the work evenly, so that you don't end up having 2 phases with nothing to do, right? So I'll give my personal experience. What happened is I was working on kind of a creative solution to something. I'll go into the details of that project in probably the next video, which I've been saving for quite some time now. Anyway, so it was something creative and it was fun. So the first month was really interesting because I was creating something new. It was like actual engineering, so it was really awesome. But in the second and third month, it ended up being really boring for me because it was kind of repetitive work, and I did not like it because no one likes repetition, right? So my amount of work that I was doing every month dropped drastically, and I started getting red flags all over me because mentors thought that I was not interested in my work, which was kind of true. But the thing is, I had completed, say, 80% of my project in the first month. Okay, so be very careful about this. Okay, else you'll be in real trouble in the last phase. Trust me, you don't want to be there. So you want to distribute your work evenly. First off, in the 3 phases, you want to distribute it. Stash surplus PRs. What this means is, if you start using GitHub, there is something called a pull request. Okay, I think the best way to explain pull request would be to consider an actual project. For example, say you are working on the backend, right? You're working on a server code, and say you are supposed to implement 3 APIs. Cool. Say authentication, for example. One is to authenticate via Google, one is to authenticate via Twitter, one is to authenticate, say, via Facebook. Okay. Now if you, for example, have implemented all the 3 APIs in 3 different PRs, of course, you don't want to do too much work in single PR. That is something we'll probably discuss in some other video regarding GitHub and open source. But in general, the rule is you don't implement too many things in one PR. You split them over many PRs. So one feature, one PR, like this. So you have 3 PRs now. Now you don't want to submit them right away. What you want to do is submit a PR and let the rest 2 PRs rest. Okay, let them be there. The next day you submit one more. If you have done if you have overworked, for example, one day you have too much free time on your hands and you thought of implementing 5-6 PRs, don't submit them all at once. Keep them, submit them, say, 2 at a time or 1 at a time. Okay, this will at least give you kind of a regularity that you're looking for, in a sense that mentors will never feel that you have worked too much and you're slacking off on the other days. Okay, people usually don't like those kind of people who do too much work on one day and the rest of the days they are like resting. So even if you're resting, just submit that PR and forget, like, enjoy your day. So this is an important strategy to avoid overworking, or at least make use of that overworked time. Okay, so stash your PRs, don't send them all at once, don't submit them all at once. Yeah, so the third one is avoid participating in anything that is not mentioned in your GSOC program. So some open source organizations have the tendency of using their participants, in the sense that using is possibly the right word, actually. So using them in the sense that they will ask their participants to go conduct a meetup. They may ask the participants to kind of advertise what they're working on, which is okay, of course. You can totally do that. It's not unethical per se. But if you are judging the score of the candidate based on these particular activities, then that is wrong, because that is not what an individual signed up for. Google Summer of Code means code. right? Not not developer advocate work. Cool. So the thing is, you have to say no to that, of course, because you don't want to waste your time for something that you are not being paid for, right? Now, how you say no basically sets you apart. So if you're going to just say no, you will get in the bad books of mentors because you are someone who does not complies. Okay, you can say no in a couple of ways. Some creative ways might be actually saying yes and not doing it, and you know, mm, kind of figuring out ways around the system to kind of fool the orgs to think that you have actually done the developer advocate work. Okay, other ways might be giving somewhat a reasonable excuse. Okay, so that is totally up to you. What I'm trying to say is don't be an idiot and just bluntly say no. That would be the most stupid thing to do. The fourth point would be own your work whenever possible. What this means is, say the project that you're working on requires a code which can be written in the form of a library. Okay, now the thing is, the library or the idea of creating a library of reusable code came to you. Okay, the best thing to do is uh, shift the code to your own code base, as in the library code, and convert it into a package or a module that you will use in the open source project. What this gives you are two things. First off, there is a library that you have written, which is being used in one of the well-known open source projects that you're working on. Secondly, when people look at your profile, they see that you have written a library. All right, you get a couple of forks, you get a couple of stars, it works in your favor, right? So don't like it. I mean, in my case, it also happened that the org founder asked me to shift my library code to the org's repository, which I of course denied because it's my code, it was my intellectual property, I'm not going to give it to you, right? So if you're writing a library or any piece of reusable code that you can deliver as a package, as a npm module, as a pip package, do it. Like, move it into your code base, work on it, polish the code, and just maintain it. Free publicity for you. Any blogs you write should be your intellectual property, of course. So some orgs have this tendency as well to make students write about the things that they have done, which seems very pointless, to be honest, right? But anyway, so what I would say is, and what I had done is, the blogs that I wrote, I usually write, like even before GSOC I used to write. I enjoy writing. I enjoy writing technical articles, giving nice description. Teaching people is something I enjoy. Now, during my GSOC, my org founder made it a point that everyone should, like in every phase, people have to write around 2 to 3 articles or something like that. I don't remember it exactly. So what I did was, I selected some very nice topics on which I wanted to work. One of them was, in fact, my own library, which I wrote for GSOC. So and of course the new things that I learned for GSOC, for example, the Electron.js ecosystem, I learned it, so it was a good idea to write about it, or the insights that I've drawn, maybe something creative that I have done, right? Now, so what I did was, I just wrote those blogs first on my own Medium account. I use Medium. If you use WordPress or Blogger, go for it. So I basically wrote those articles firstly on Medium. Then I just copy pasted that, like after publishing it on my Medium page first, I just copy pasted them back to their particular blog or whatever they preferred. So this worked like this. Because I published first, my articles already are on top of the search list, right? Because if anyone has looked up for it, it is most likely between the time when I've published uh, and when I've moved or basically copy pasted the article to their website, right? Of course, I might be wrong here, because it might be possible that it is being looked up later on. But if you are regular in your writing work, people usually know that you write. So as soon as you publish, people will see your work and probably give you a couple of claps or likes, depending on which platform you're writing. So yeah, own your work. Don't let people steal your work. Everything that you do should help you out in your later career. And I'll actually give you an instance how this helped. One of the articles that I wrote during GSOC, which of course I wrote firstly on my Medium page, actually got me into a freelance job recently, right? So I mean, it's a Canadian startup, so you can imagine. So if someone totally random like reads my articles and thinks that, yeah, this guy is suitable for doing this particular task, so you can imagine what kind of impact your work can have on people. So it might actually get you into wonderful opportunities if you do it right, if you play the right cards. All right. Then we have know when to snap. So this is again from a few personal experiences, which I'll go deeper on in the next video. See, the thing is, being patient is very important. The reason is because you're working in a team, you're working in people across countries with different cultures and mindsets. It is easy to like lose your lose your temper. Okay, so don't. Okay, be patient. Sometimes taking a few punches is okay if it helps you out later on. Okay, be nice to people as long as you have to. Okay, so knowing when to take a stand is even more important, because sometimes if you are too passive, if you're too patient, right, people will exploit you, thinking that you just enjoy working and they'll pile up on you, right? Make sure that does not happen. If your teammate is being pressurized, if your teammate is being asked to work overtime, take a stand for him if necessary. Okay, sometimes like it is not just about the program, sometimes you have to act as a team, right? And always keep in mind that if the mentor decides, if the org decides to, for example, fail 3 or 4 candidates out of its selected 8 candidates, then obviously uh, the org will get a very bad reputation and it won't probably get selected next year. So keep in mind that if you work as a group, it's less likely for you guys to end up in trouble, right? Prepare your mindset around the fact that programmers are in general very rude people. So yeah, this is a very important fact. In general, like this is of course a normal distribution we are talking about. There might be extremes on the tails. So the thing is, most of the programmers are in general very rude people. You take some well-known examples, of course. Linus Torvalds is possibly one of the best examples. So like people who are really sharp, they don't have time for your small talk. Okay, they don't have time to be patient with people. They are really busy, and if you ask stupid questions, if you don't do your homework right and ask questions, if you don't show that you are being creative, or at least trying to be creative, so they might get irritated really quickly. Plus age makes you a bit irritated sometimes, so be wary of the fact. I mean, be accept the fact that this is going to happen at some point or the other, where you might get some rude reply and you might not like it, but you have to understand, right? You have to be a bit cooperative here. So being rude should not be confused with being a bad person. I am trying not to use cuss words here, but yeah, you know which word I was going for anyway. So of course, like, be mindful of that, right? So I think that's all. Possibly that's all I had in terms of tips and tricks, I guess. The last video that I'll probably do will be totally on my experience in Force Asia and what went wrong, what was something positive that I got out of it, but in general, what was the negative vibe that I got from the organization, and it will be a fun video. Actually, I've been meaning to do it for a long time now. But anyway, I hope you learned something from this video. These things are usually not given in any rule book, but these things are something that you usually learn if you're working in a startup or a group or a team, right? So if this is your first time doing something like this, and you are inexperienced when it comes to working in a team, then things might come to you as a surprise. But anyway, if you learned something new, feel free to subscribe to the channel to support my work. It'll be great to know that people are actually listening to what I have to say. And thank you for the 50 people who have supported me so far. So it's really good to know that students are actually learning something out of this. Anyway, so yeah, I guess that's it. Take care. Bye bye.